to really to deploy more broadband and to provide kind of the back office support that they need to deploy those services. We also operate a transport network through the northern part of the state, and that gives us a good perspective on connectivity throughout the state, as well as some of the costs associated with finding networks to connect to new and expansion areas. So the goal, I think, of at least as we see it, is with the surveys and with the partnership plan in place, is what can we do to be prepared when we go to partners and say, hey, we are a community that's serious about doing something. This is what we have to offer, and we need some help on building, running, and maintaining this network. So, being prepared, obviously, is really the key to success. And so, breaking that down, bringing data to potential partners, leveraging the local experts that you have, as well as using the tools that you have. So we're talking about provider data, we're talking about surveys, we're talking about publicly available data and data sets, like public land that can be leveraged for potential projects. Existing experts. We talk to communities and they've got experts who are out in the community doing all sorts of things. We've got reporters, we've got emergency service professionals, we've got all of these folks that understand deficiencies in the areas, and then existing tools. We've got GIS departments, we've got technical people, we've got IT people who understand a lot of these things. They also have software that they can leverage. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is leveraging a GIS platform for handling the surveys as well as the data. And so many of the communities have a GIS person, certainly at the county level. Most have a GIS person or a GIS consultant, and many of them leverage the Esri Platform. It's got a lot of built-in tools, and that's what we're going to talk about largely today, but there are ways to do similar things with different tools. Quick process, get resident feedback, understand what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and get anecdotal stories. Like we talked about, I think yesterday, there's a lot of people don't know what speed they have. They don't know, some may not even know who their provider is. They get confused often. What is beneficial though is the actual stories that they write on a survey, and they say, this is what I can't do, or this is the problem I'm having, or this is what I could do with better service. So let's collect that. So we get the feedback, we identify areas based on that to focus upon. We look to quantify that demand, again, by going out and maybe going door to door, talking to people, providing that data. Get the commitment, find partners that align with the goals that we've identified in the areas and the needs, and then we can move that to the next step by any phases for potential build up with that partner. So collecting data. We throw around the term survey a lot, when in fact a lot of what we do, certainly if it's distributed via social media, is really a questionnaire. And so I think understanding the key differences between a statistically relevant survey versus just a questionnaire where we got random people throwing in data is certainly an important distinction to make, certainly because on the questionnaire side we have people that are passionate probably on both ends of the spectrum, which may or may not help the cause, but it does help to further that conversation within the community, especially with the broadband steering group. When you're talking to townships, other groups within the community to build that interest and keep that conversation going. So the difference between the survey and the questionnaire, survey would have a statistically relevant number of responses and a specific sample size and sample group that you would target and make sure that they answer the questions. And then how do we deliver it via social media for the questionnaire, or if we're going door to door or phone calls for an actual survey. So here's a look at the Esri platform. So every entity that uses the Esri platform has the license for that software. This is one of the services that comes with that license. and this is called the Crowdsource Reporter. This is out of the box app. Once you've got the Esri Platform, this is at no cost. This is a sample that we set up. We took Isani County for an example. We broke it into 2 regions, and this could be deployed on a website. People can click on there, shows the support. So this is just kind of a glance of what a website might look like. Click to show support. The survey pops up. People complete it. Survey is fully customized. You can add photos, you add your location. You can respond in terms of whichever kind of questions you want. Or you can add the questions that you want. Who's your provider? What's your speed? Are you willing to pay for this service? What are you willing to pay? Etc. Once it's complete, you're able to see your location on the map, and we also have some progress bars that show the number of responses to that survey, so everybody can see. We can turn this into a bit of a kind of a social media challenge where people are incented to say, hey, we need a few more to go, let's roll that out and share it on social media, etc. This is a look at the dashboard that the broadband team would see. They can see, okay, we can see how many responses there's been in each area. We can see all of the responses. We can download them. We can email the people. We can send them direct mail, etc. And so this is the dashboard you did on the back side. And while the communities on the website would see it on the previous slide. Just another shout out at the website and options. Certainly there's unlimited options in terms of the language that you use. Talking about the project, have a social media aspect there. And this is really tied all to that kind of crowdsource questionnaire approach. Okay, so we've got a questionnaire, we've got a rough idea of what the challenges are, what the opportunities might be, and areas we may want to focus on based on the geographic makeup of the questionnaire responses. So this is a quick video. We'll see if this works. This is another app called Survey 123. It's another Esri app. It's free with the license. And this allows you to quickly take that survey or a different survey, deploy it to the cloud, and you can send people door to door. Send volunteers door to door with an iPad, with a phone. You can ask questions in real time. You drop a pin on their location. Now we're taking a real survey because we know exactly who it is. We could do a representative sample, or we can hit all the doors. We know exactly how many people are at least interested in saying yes. We could also we could ask for a deposit. Pay us $50, and we know that you're serious. We can add that to the data set, and that allows us then to talk to the partner and say, these people are serious winners. Let's see if the video works. That's not real snippet. So once the survey is completed by the person that's doing the door knocking, this is what the management team in the back end would see in real time. Obviously, there'd be more dots as you send people around, but in real time, you can see exactly where the responses have been. From that dashboard as well, you can pull up a similar dashboard to this. You can now see all of the responses from that Survey 123 submissions. Again, we can see all the data, we can pull it out, and this is all at no additional cost if you've got somebody with that as your license. So, what can we do next with that data? So what we look to do in working with these communities, we'll take a lot of data and we'll pull it into the GIS platform, different layers. We can take all of that, we can take that to a partner and say, here's a lot of data. And this saves probably days of effort, maybe more, and expedites the process. In terms of making your community stand out among all of the others. These are important things. So this is a layer showing the telephone exchange boundaries. And so as you're working through the process, you can say, okay, we know that these are the telephone providers either in our area or adjacent to our area. These might be good partners for us to see. So that's one of the layers that we included. The electric co-ops. There's a lot of discussion all over the country about electric co-ops being somewhat interested in providing broadband. I think certainly that's different across the board. Some are very interested, some are less than interested. But these are good providers. They bring a lot to the table. They've got a lot of initiatives underway, smart grid and these sorts of things, that may make for good partners or good resources to have to help with the project. Here we pull in some, in addition to the survey data, potential partner data, pull in some third-party data. So this is Dun and Bradstreet data. And we took a look at this area and we said, okay, let's color code all of the businesses based on employees. So more employees, presumably, may have a higher need for service. And so we can start to look and see maybe there are areas that we can define that may have a higher need based on employees. And here's one of the sales ranges. So we look at total revenue. And we say, okay, based on where these are, maybe there are areas that we can identify that may be good first phase projects due to a larger size business that may have interest in higher levels of service and certainly likely to be able to pay more. We took the deed, served, unserved, and underserved map, which is interesting, but it's more interesting when we color code all of the address points. So all of the address points now have been color coded to whether or not that address is served, unserved, or underserved. Oops. This is a look at the actual survey responses for this community. So, well, questionnaire responses. These are color-coded based on the responses of the people that filled out the questionnaire within the community. Green is I'm satisfied with what I've got. Blue, not so much. Red, dissatisfied with what I've got. So we can start to see some areas that are maybe more likely to be served. And certainly in town, we see higher levels of satisfaction because there's multiple providers there and certainly better services. And so then the question is, so what can we identify from this? Well, we can identify potential areas that we may want to focus on. We can then also take all of this data, we can export this, and we can say, you know what, let's target a mailing, let's target an email campaign to any of those groups. And either fully further dive into that, or can we get them to come in? Can we get them to engage with us? Can we go out and ask for an actual donation or a commitment to pay for the service as we go? In addition to that, we've also got these public data sources like we talked about. So this is the county and state-owned property. So if we're looking for places that maybe some wireless towers could be constructed, we also have the wireless towers, the FCC public database of towers, map that as well. And this is something we can take again to the partner provider. We say, these would be good spots where we can start looking at putting towers or leveraging the existing towers. Let's see. Oh, that's just the same towers. Propagation studies, we can add those to the map, certainly of the existing providers. We can make some assumptions on that and see where we think the existing providers may have service already. Schools, libraries, healthcare facilities. Something that's a little off on our map here. There's not that many libraries. But these are good things as well, because we know schools, libraries, while they already may be connected, there may be other locations that need services, hospitals as well. Here's a look at census blocks. So we can pull in all the census blocks. And then we can get granular. We can see in that highlighted census block, there's 12 houses, 32 people. Okay, so we can start to run some queries, identify how many people, how many households are in each area, and really start to get a feel for what the cost might be to construct. And here I've run a quick query on that specific area. So we say, this looks like maybe a reasonable area, and within a few seconds we can understand there's 630 residential addresses there. 191 are underserved. I think that's saying that unserved. Maybe that's what it's called. That is all I've got for you.
Thank you, Paul. Now we'll have Damien talk about specifically what his group did in Lakeshore from a community perspective.
There we go. So I'm a member of the city of Lakeshore, which is on the northeast or northwest side of Gull Lake, not too far from here. And the broadband issue has been a major issue in my mind since back in 2005 when we moved into the area. I didn't realize it was as big of an issue with the rest of the residents in the city. But so when we got together, myself and some of the residents have always kind of made note that, hey, you know, we need to do something with broadband in this area because we have DSL with the local phone company. And unfortunately, the best we can get is about 4 meg on a good day. Most of the time it's around 2.5, a little bit less. And then when everybody gets home at 5, it really drops. And so we've had an issue for quite some time. Everybody's unhappy with the service. So what we did is we got and identified, you know, what is needed. And so the city of Lakeshore put together a broadband committee, which I ended up being the chairperson for. We had about 8 members, including the mayor. And some of them lived in the same area I did. And so we were able to kind of get through the need, what's available now, kind of figure out where we stand and what do we need to do. And so after going through all that, we ended up getting some help from Bill Coleman at the Blandon Foundation, which was amazing and what he brought to the table, and help us identify a little bit more as far as what do we need to look for and what should we do. Because obviously we developed a need, and at the time, you know, how do we get this need developed into something that can be proposed, and then what do we do from there? So Bill came up with a platform called SurveyMonkey, and honestly, after looking at this would have been the platform that we should have used, because all the data that you get back, I mean, you really need to understand, you know, what are the people's responses, you know? So we came up with a list of questions, and I'll just read them real quick to kind of go through what we decided on. And then I'll tell you how we went about getting it to the people. So the first question is which of the following internet services, if any, do you currently use at your home, business, and Lakeshore? And then there was A, B, C, D, E, F questions. Dial-up, high-speed, cell phone-based internet, satellite. We don't have internet, and we don't want to subscribe to internet. And then we had a question of who's your current provider and estimated monthly cost, because that's data that you really need to see. The second one is which of the following internet technologies, if any, do you use at your home in Lakeshore? And then there was A, B, C, and D, voice over streaming, voice over internet phone, basic internet, or email. Are you a full-time or seasonal resident of Lakeshore? How satisfied are you with the internet service you currently have at your home, business in Lakeshore, or in Lakeshore City? Please rate your satisfaction by the speed of your current internet provider. Excellent, good, fair, poor, or I don't use internet. Which of the following services would you be interested in if you had access to faster internet service? Streaming, voice over internet phone. Which of the following, if any, would you be more likely to do if you had access to faster internet services? Telecommute, home, work from home, operate a home-based business, online education. If you currently have high-speed internet service, how likely would you switch to a faster option if it was available? Obviously, yes, or very likely or not likely. Changing internet service providers might require a change to an existing email address, such as going from John Doe at Comcast to John Doe at Charter. Would this prevent you from switching? Yes or no? If you currently do not have high-speed internet service, how likely are you to subscribe to high-speed internet service if it becomes available? Very likely or not likely? If you have high-speed internet service, do you have any of the following with the service as in a bundled package, landline or phone or TV? How important is it to have a bundled package available of high-speed internet option? Very important or not important? And the last question was, would you choose a bundled package for internet, TV, and landline phone service if it was available from your one provider? Yes or no? And then we had, obviously, we appreciate your input on this matter. The information will be held completely confidential within the city of Lakeshore because we essentially generated this, so it wasn't data mining for some other company. Try to ease it up a little bit because we really want to know who these people are. And it's important to get their feedback. And the city also wanted to have their updated information for the city residents. And then they filled out their information and submitted it. I mean, literally the survey took you about a minute and a half. And we had a pretty good response. There's 450 homes in Lakeshore. I think we had over 100 responses. And the unanimous result was that everybody was unhappy with their current provider. And, it brings up the question of broadband status. It's been upgraded to 25 meg down, 3 meg up. And there's a lot of residents in Lakeshore that doesn't have it. In fact, there's only one provider in Lakeshore, I think, that provides even close to that. And so it was an issue that we obviously identified. The survey helped. Some of the other question answers were they need more speed because they'd like to work from home. Or they are working from home, but they can't use streaming services, GoToMeeting, all that stuff. The other response was they'd like to cut their cord from the Dish or DirecTV and use a streaming service like Hulu and Sling were the two that we got responded. And so obviously you need to have a faster service to be able to do that. And so that was kind of the three unanimous things that came out of it. Everybody was unhappy. They needed more speed. And it was pretty obvious that we needed to do something. So once we got through all that stuff, we developed the survey, which I just read. And the biggest thing that we did to promote it was social media. And it was nice because there's a lot of people that weren't in town. In fact, I had one of them that lives next to me was in Florida for a wedding. And he was able to do it from his phone at the wedding down in Florida. So it was really a good way to do it. Word of mouth was obviously there. We also had a newsletter. We put it in the newsletter of City of Lakeshore. And then we also had some forms at City Hall that they could fill out. But as I was thinking about this is that, there's a really important date coming up on November 6th that you could have a form at the voting place and say, hey, when you're done voting, if you wouldn't mind taking the survey here, we're trying to approve the broadband for the city. To me, that would be a great opportunity to get more data. And so that's something we might do to see if we can get some more responses. But from what we've received so far, it's pretty obvious that we need to do something different. So a couple other things we had in there we thought about is that, getting people to do a survey sometimes is tough. So we thought maybe like an incentive, hey, we'll get a $100 gift card for one of the local gas stations or a restaurant or something like that. And we even had one of the restaurants here in Lakeshore would donate a gift card and said, well, we'll keep that in our back pocket in case we need something. But, to throw all the participants in a hat drop, get a $100 gift card for a restaurant. And so that was something we looked at, and it still could do that, but we did get a pretty good response. So I'm not sure we'll do that if we need to moving forward. And so after we've done all this, got the responses, now we're faced with, okay, what are our choices? And one of the things we need to look at is obviously cost is a big issue. We looked at grants, and the Blended Foundation does a really good job of looking for grants and available opportunities to help with funding of the project. Unfortunately, because of Lakeshore's proximity to Gull Lake, they're out of the grant opportunity range. So that kind of brings us back to the drawing board. It's okay, now we're off the table with the grant, so we have to fund this somehow. How are we going to do it? And I know I recognize you from the CTC. Yep. So we had 3 providers come in: CTC, Charter, Spectrum, and CenturyLink. And so now we're in the process of figuring out what's the best option for Lakeshore. CTC has an amazing option with fiber optic, 100 up, 100 down. That's an intriguing option as well. Most of what we're getting is 25 and 5 for the availability, which is perfectly fine for residents to get to that broadband level. And so we're in the process of figuring out, what's our best option. Some of these providers like CTC, they already have service in Lakeshore, so that's an advantage that we can look at. If you already service X amount of percentage of it, what would it take to edge out? And I know you've kind of given us a napkin proposal. We haven't really done anything, by the way. It's just been kind of a slow process, but so we're in that process of, we've identified the problem. If we would have had this program, not to say that this is the first time I've met you, I've never seen this, I think we could have narrowed our data down a little bit better. The survey did a great job, and it was kind of off the cuff. It was easy for a customer to do it, or for a resident to take it, which I think, we even thought about going door to door, and I never thought about the iPad thing. I mean, that could be a great opportunity if you didn't get the results you needed, you could go door to door, which, believe me, we're at the point, we're so unhappy with the service, and everybody else is, jumping up and down, and we're still at 4 megs or less. I mean, I would have gone door to door to try to get some answers. So a lot of great opportunity and ideas there. We just didn't have the identification of that before we started, but moving forward, if we needed to drill it down again, I mean, definitely this would be the way to do it, because it really, answers a lot of information, and it gives you the, recording of where are you, where was this proximity line, all of that stuff. We didn't have any of that. We just had answers. Granted, Itasca County is a little bit different as far as demographics and area than the city of Lakeshore, but either way, the more data you can have, the better, and that's in pretty much anything in this world. And so, like I said, from a standpoint of Lakeshore, we did the survey, we identified the problem, we needed to know where to go. We now know where we need to go, and now we're in the process of, I think we're kind of past that initial part of it and figuring out what's it going to take, how much is it going to cost, who's going to be the provider. It might be a split system where, this provider at CTC has, this area is already kind of serviced by them. What it's going to cost to get those residents, so we're kind of in that decision stage. And either way, if there's anything to be said about this, and had we had this, we'd have more results. Having the data and having the survey or whatever the case may be to get that data is vitally important, because obviously the city residents are the ones that are going to be voting on this. They're the ones that are going to be affected by it, so you really want their input. And the one thing I will say is that, and the nice thing about the iPad and the kind of the friendliness part of it is that it needs to be less pressure. You don't want to come out and put all this and say, you're just data mining for the data. You're going to take my data. What are you going to do with it? Actually, no, we're paying for this. This is the city of Lakeshore's own funded project. So your data isn't being shared with anybody. That is a major point that we made sure we told everyone of the city, the residents of Lakeshore, that this is something that's owned by us. You're not going to be shared with anybody. If anything, it's going to help Terry and the city of Lakeshore office update the records of the residents. So from a standpoint of an experience part, obviously we're a volunteer part of the committee for Lakeshore, but I think we've already kind of gone through a lot of this. But like I said, with this program, I think it would help us a little bit more.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Paul, did you want to respond to anything that Damien brought up?
What I would add is that this is part of a process. So I think, what you did is a perfect first step. And if the feedback is that overwhelmingly there are deficiencies and there's a desire, then you take that to the next level. And then you go more in depth and start identifying specific areas and start to work with the partners and identify where that is and what are the challenges and all that.
So, say that we did your survey, are you guys also helping us identify the partners in this? Or we did this platform, or is it something that we take and then figure out who's available on the side?
That process can happen in multiple ways. It just depends on, for communities that are doing a feasibility study, they would hire a consultant to come in and say, help us figure this out. Tell us about the ecosystem, give us an idea on costs, tell us about challenges and the best areas. And these tools, like I mentioned, these are for a lot of municipalities. They already have access to these sorts of tools, or you could use SurveyMonkey on an iPad, no problem. But I think it just depends on what your goals are and maybe where you're at in the partnership process. In terms of kind of what the next steps are. And it's, in terms of the actual question, sky's the limit. And frankly, somebody like Joe would have a better idea, or really any partner provider would have a better idea. What is the data that we really want to know?
I got a question on yours. When you talk about when you're going door to door and you're getting a donation, I mean, what is that? Is that to fund this project, or is that to fund getting towards the actual getting the broadband?
Yeah, donation is probably the wrong word. Commitment is, I think, the language I was looking for. But yeah, I mean, you could say, make a deposit towards it. If the project happens, well, maybe it goes towards it. Just something to put a little skin in for sure.
Yep. Is there any questions out here?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do anyone in the audience have questions? Joanne?
I know this takes a long way, but can you tell me all that wonderful stuff that you would still sell that service, or is something that you recommend that county to add it, and if you know that stuff, it's not either like that, expertise, or it's not. You do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's, there's I think probably a handful of consultants that would have the opportunity. This can easily be turned up on somebody else's platform and let a community run with it. But I agree with your statement in terms of finding that local person's time, because that's really the hardest part. Is it takes a lot of local leadership to say, I'm willing to pull some of my staff off of the projects that they're on now and have them devote some time to a broadband initiative and start pulling in some of the data, because it takes time to really pull in good data and then start thinking of this up to even add more data to it. So, yeah, I think, and there too, every community is different in terms of the resources they have, the desires they have, the goals, size, geography, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, this is available, and these are pretty simple things to do. The next steps, you get a little more complicated, but for the process.
So you're still getting time to look into that.
Sure, we would, yeah.
It's very new.
Well, this is the platforms that existed for a while. It's just finding new and better ways to use the technology that exists.
You're talking about the deposit early commitment. One of the questions in here was, would you pay for faster service? And everyone said yes. So for us, it looks like it's not necessarily where the residents pay for it. It's necessarily, let's get it in so they can pay for it.
And I think that's an important consideration in this, is making sure that people understand that this will take money, and to set the precedent early on, it's going to cost something. And making sure that we're honest and upfront about these things, and if there's interest to pay.
And then I say, also, is when you get the actual data, like I said, how important this is, that's real. Well, there's 500 people that are going to pay for this. No, this is 500 people that said yes, and that they will do this. And it helps you make a decision. We should have actually had a question in there, would you give some kind of commitment, or what would be your commitment to help fund this project? That would probably help us. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and ask them.
Other questions? Melinda?
Yeah, really, what I was trying to show is that you can pull all of that into one place. So you could ask your questions on a website through a survey that would dump into the same database. You could then have the same questions or different questions for some team going door to door. We would then combine that all into one map on different layers. So you can really start to run queries on that data and export that data and really drill into what's the sentiment of this area. And how do we overlay that with the other third-party data, like folks that are unserved or underserved? Yeah, it's an Esri survey tool that it's integrated from the survey directly to the database, and that's really the nice part about that is that once the data is collected, now it's in the database. Now it can be used in any map that you want to create, whether that's an external facing map or that's an internal map for the design team, the engineers, etc. I mean, it's an ancillary tool that Esri offers.
Other questions?
I just got one question. How many people are in here are actually in an area where you have not underperforming, but less than broadband status internet speed? Yeah, it's fortunately, unfortunately, some of our information got spread out past the city of Lakeshore. And I ended up getting a bunch of phone calls from people that live north of Pequot Lakes and up in the rural areas. They're, hey, is there an incentive for TDS or what's the deal? We heard you're doing some broadband upgrading. So, oh. Well, maybe we know how the media works, but we're not quite doing it yet. But unfortunately, we're not even in your city. But here's what we're doing. And so there's a township up there just north of us now that are interested in getting their members, because essentially whatever we do is going to open the door up for other opportunity, because our city ends at the township line, which is a road that keeps going north and spreading out to these other communities. So the provider that we choose is going to have a better opportunity than just Lakeshore edging out. They're going to be able to, the service map that you put on paper, what they could be, there's a lot more than just the 450 homes we're talking about. So it's going to open up doors to other areas.
Any questions from the audience? I did have one I wanted to ask. Could you talk about our commitment to developing and launching the SurveyMonkey tool from the beginning, to collecting and analyzing the first time you had paid individually or through your library meetings?
So we had probably 2 meetings that were about 2 hours each, trying to develop this, what we're going to do. And like I said, Bill from the Broadband Foundation then showed up at our second meeting, and we kind of went through, okay, let's develop a list of questions. And we had a lot of questions, but let's really narrow it down to what do we really need to ask. And so we came up with the 12 that we had. And I'd say maybe 2 hours on developing the question list that we submitted to the Broadband Foundation. I think they had it online within 2 hours. And they sent us a link. We all kind of went through it. I was surprised at how fast it went. I mean, literally, it was really quick. And that was kind of appeasing to us, because you want to make sure, like I said, it's not this big thing that they're going to have to sit down after dinner and do a 2.5-hour survey. So it went pretty quick. I would say total, time commitment, 8 or 9 hours.
Okay. And you got funding from you got Bill from our right? What preceded that? I mean, was there like you and 2 others saying broadband bad, and how many weeks or months was the discussion going on before that formal broadband committee?
So prior to the committee, myself, we were ready to sign a petition to go back to the provider and say, you've been charging us for up to 15 megs for 13 and a half years. We have had way less than that. I mean, less than 5. If anybody got more than 5, you probably, your house was 5 feet from the pedestal where the service is split. And so it's been years. We were trying to get the answer for years. You know, you need to upgrade, you need this. Well, we've got this grant, but we ran out of money at your corner. It's like, well, yeah, but the farm that's at the end of that road, it's got 100 meg service. I mean, that's one road. We've got a road here with another 35 residents. So it's been an issue for 3 to 4 years. I mean, that's when we really started stepping up. So kind of when the cut the cord thing came on, and everybody wants to stream. Well, you get one thing streaming in your house, and then everybody else is out of luck. So it was been years, and thankfully the chief of police is my neighbor for Lakeshore, and we have been talking about doing something. We went to the local provider, phone provider, only to find out that they closed the office, and then you have to call an 800 number and go through 15 prompts, and you're talking to somebody else. It was always a never-ending road. We could never get to somebody, and then finally I said, I'm the committee chair of broadband. We need to get some answers, and they still didn't answer. So I would say 3 years leading up to that, finally we just said, what are we going to do? Are we going to do a class action lawsuit? Because every one of these residents was on board. And so we decided, let's do a chair committee, find out where we're at, find out what our options. So that's kind of what led up to this. And then we just approached the mayor and said, hey, there's a bunch of people in Lakeshore that are unhappy with the service. Let's put something together and figure out how many of those people are unhappy and figure out what can we do to fix it. Because essentially, believe it or not, one of the questions that are being asked on home sales is, what school district are you in, and do you have high-speed internet? If you don't, we actually had a sale in one of our neighborhoods that didn't do it because they didn't have high-speed internet. The realtor came to the city of Lakeshore and said, with a complaint, hey, you need to get your broadband up. I just lost a home sale. So unfortunately, that's becoming a thing. And obviously, we don't want to have virtual babysitters with everybody and being online, but that's what's happening today. So it's been a 3-year kind of lead up to this. Probably a couple months of committee and then about 8 to 9 hours to get that survey out.
And when was the survey held?
So it was out on, I believe it was August 10th. So we wanted to get it out before Labor Day, before all the people up here in the cabins area were still around, even though they could have done it down there or wherever they go. We had it out, and then it was Lakeshore City Newsletter, which I think was the last one for the Labor Day.
Damien, please remind me, how many providers in Lakeshore?
So there's 3 of them, yep.
So was it across the board, people were dissatisfied with providers?
The unanimous decision was that they are unhappy with their current service. Now, after that survey, there's been some upgrades from some of the providers in the area.
You've got some better response from some providers than others.
Right, and I think it all has to do with geography, because there's one provider that has 70% of the city, and the other 2 are kind of in rural areas.
So I guess they need to come into the table to talk with you.
Yeah.
Give a response from some than others.
Yes and no. I mean, I think everybody was unanimously like, hey, we want to help you with the problem. We didn't, unfortunately, the one provider that I have, that most of the people in the northern part of the city has, are the only ones that didn't come to the table because we can't get a hold of it. So, it's a little bit of logistics issues there, but, at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to dollars. And we've already talked about ways to fund it. So we're getting to that point now where we're going to get the actual proposals, send out the requests, get the proposals back, and then we have numbers. So we have to have numbers to go through and say, okay, are we going to bond this out, or what are our options here?
So follow up to Diane, then, if I may. Do you ever see the state offering grants to providers rather than to communities to help the providers help the communities?
Yeah, most of the grants go to the providers, and if you went on the previous panel where she was talking about Sunrise Township,
Right.
we partnered with CenturyLink.
But Sunrise is doing the lake and most of the work.
Sunrise was the grant recipient there, but because of the open meeting law requirements and some of the proprietary data that CenturyLink had, when they did it again, it was Chicago County officially, so CenturyLink decided to be the advocate. But we do look, we have on the application, if it's a partnership, we do look if there's some funding from the community. We highly prioritize communities that have a lot of letters of support, or even these survey results as an attachment, because the state doesn't want to fund a project that no one is going to subscribe to. We want to fund projects that are very much in need or wanted by the customers in that area.
One of the things where I didn't know, on the survey,
Yeah, so for us, we had a couple that chose not to divulge their information. And I think that's where it's important that you tell them, this is information that's 100% to us. We are funding the survey. This isn't data mining. We're not going to sell your information to, the robocallers. But we had a couple that said that they just wanted to remain anonymous, but for the most part, everybody gave us their phone, email, all that stuff. From our experience.
Yeah, and I don't blame people in today's day and age for having some criticism of those sorts of things. I think it depends too, if it's a door-to-door survey, you can have those conversations. If it's an online questionnaire, yeah, you don't know, and you also don't know if somebody's just making something up or, sending in 5 responses. So that's really the balancing act between high accuracy and high cost, or quick and easy with less accuracy. So, yeah, I'm sure this is what it is.
We told people that they're not going to get a call from Veronica, the local Google search specialist.
All right, we're about 4 minutes before noon. If anyone has a quick question, you can take it. Otherwise, we can be dismissed to go to lunch. All right, well, thank you, and thank you, Pam.